The weak sun filtered through the floor-to-ceiling windows, casting long shadows on the expensive mahogany floors of the Cheng family's Westchester home. As the sole heiress to the Yu Corporation, I had married into this family 5 years ago, and since then, I had maintained a near-perfect veneer of respectability. Even with a housekeeper on staff, on days we visited my in-laws, I always made a point of helping with small chores. It was a symbolic gesture to show that despite my privileged background, I wasn't spoiled. "Jessica, honey, could you go get Sarah's clothes from the terrace? It looks like it's about to rain." My mother-in-law, perched on the sofa and snacking on pretzels, issued the command with casual indifference. "Of course, Mom," I replied meekly, setting down the apple I had just finished peeling. I turned and headed upstairs. The wind on the terrace was strong. A few of my sister-in-law Sarah's trench coats and silk scarves were whipping violently on the clothesline. Sarah was married to Kevin's older brother, Mike. She had a gentle face and usually carried herself with a timid, almost apologetic air. In this house, her status was even lower than mine, the outsider. I reached for her beige cashmere coat. As I was about to fold it, a gust of wind lifted the hem, and a small, neatly folded piece of paper slipped from the side pocket, fluttering onto the terracotta tiles. I bent down to pick it up. It wasn't a random scrap. It was the watermarked, imported memo pad paper that Kevin kept in his home office study. A strange impulse took over me, and I unfolded it. A familiar handwriting met my eyes. It was Kevin's a confident, flowing script that always carried a hint of self-satisfied flair. The usual place. Tuesday, 10 p.m. The 7 words were like a dull blade, sawing open a corner of my placid life. My heart constricted violently, followed by a deafening, tinnitus-like silence. The usual place. Tuesday. I remembered it clearly. Every Tuesday night, Kevin would come home late, using the excuse of a senior management meeting or a golf game with a client. And Sarah? Tuesdays were when she attended her so-called Ikebana flower arrangement class. So that was it. All the coincidences suddenly snapped together into a straight, ugly line. I didn't fly into a rage. I didn't collapse into hysterical sobs like in the movies. Instead, an unprecedented calm washed over me. It was an instinct honed by years of business negotiations. The greater the crisis, the more you must sideline your emotions. I clutched the note, my fingertips turning white from the pressure. I scanned my surroundings. The terrace was empty, save for a pot of azaleas blooming so brightly they seemed to mock my foolishness. I shoved the note into my pocket and, carrying the clothes, walked calmly back into the second-floor guest room. It was empty for the moment. I took a fountain pen and a small notebook from my purse. The paper in my notebook was remarkably similar in texture to the memo pad Kevin used. I sat at the desk, took a deep breath, and closed my eyes, picturing Kevin's handwriting in my mind. Forging handwriting was a small, secret talent of mine. I'd perfected it in college to sign Kevin in for classes he skipped. I never thought I'd use the skill for something like this. If you two want to play games, I thought, then I'll play a bigger one. The original note was about a secret rendezvous, a pact. To break that pact, I needed to sow chaos. I put pen to paper, imitating Kevin's slightly connected cursive. I wrote a new line, "My brother's not coming home tonight." The message was ripe with suggestion. If Sarah found this note, what would she think? She would assume it was a signal from Kevin, an all clear, telling her the coast was clear at home tonight. I folded the forged note along the original creases, walked quickly back to the terrace, and slipped it deep into the pocket of Sarah's cashmere coat. As for the original note, I tore it into tiny pieces and flushed it down the toilet. After it was done, I looked at myself in the mirror. My makeup was flawless, but my eyes were as cold as ice. Welcome to the real world, Jessica Yu. At dinner, I was the picture of decorum. Kevin sat beside me, thoughtfully placing a piece of roasted chicken on my plate, his gentle and refined demeanor so convincing that if it weren't for the memory of that vanished note, I might have continued to drown in the illusion of his tenderness. Sarah sat across from us, wearing that same beige coat. Her hand slipped unconsciously into her pocket. In that instant, I caught a flash of surprise on her face, followed by an uncontrollable blush and a dark, knowing glint in her eyes. She glanced up at Kevin, then quickly looked down, a shy, expectant smile playing on her lips. Kevin gave her a bewildered look, clearly confused as to why his sister-in-law was suddenly gazing at him with such longing. I watched from the side, a silent observer, slowly chewing the tasteless food in my mouth while a countdown timer started in my head. Kevin's brother Mike was a long-haul truck driver and often away from home, which was one of the reasons Kevin and Sarah had become so reckless. But they didn't know that just before dinner, I had sent Mike a seemingly casual text message. "Hey Mike, heard the weather's getting bad on I-80. If it starts raining, find a rest stop early. Don't push yourself too hard. We're all thinking of you back home." Mike was a decent, family-oriented man. Seeing a concerned message from his sister-in-law, combined with a forecast that did indeed call for a severe thunderstorm, he would most likely choose to head home early. Night fell, and the storm arrived right on schedule. I lay in bed, listening to the steady rhythm of Kevin's breathing beside me. He was fast asleep, a faint, self-satisfied smile on his lips. He was probably dreaming of taking over the U Corporation, of finally kicking me, his stepping stone, to the curb. I wasn't sleeping. I was waiting. At 2 a.m., a bolt of lightning tore across the sky, followed by a deafening clap of thunder. In the brief silence that followed the roar, a piercing scream echoed from the end of the hall from Mike and Sarah's bedroom. "Ah! How? Why are you back?" It was followed by a man's furious roar. "Who are you dressed like that for? What is this? What are these papers?" Kevin jolted awake, sitting bolt upright. "What was that? What's going on?" I switched on the bedside lamp, my face an emotionless mask. "It sounds like it's coming from Mike's room." Kevin's face paled. He scrambled out of bed, not even bothering with slippers, and stumbled out the door. I calmly slipped on a silk robe and followed him. When we reached the second-floor hallway, my in-laws were also coming out of their room, hastily wrapped in their robes, their faces etched with panic. Mike's bedroom door was wide open. Bathed in the hallway light, the scene inside was like a grotesque painting. Sarah, wearing a risque lace teddy, was huddled in the corner of the bed, trembling, and Mike, the quiet, honest Mike, had eyes blazing with rage. He was clutching a few scattered documents, a shattered vase at his feet. "Mike, what's wrong? Let's just talk about this," Kevin said, rushing in to mediate. "Talk? How am I supposed to talk about this?" Mike shoved Kevin away, flinging the papers in his hand at Sarah's face. "Look at this whore. Look what she's been doing behind my back. I'm gone for a few days and she dresses up like she's for sale. And this," Mike pointed a trembling finger at the papers on the floor, "this is a copy of the deed to the old house Dad left me. And this is a stock transfer agreement. Sarah, what the hell were you planning? Were you trying to clean out the house and run off with someone?" I stood in the doorway, my eyes sweeping over the documents. It was a nominee agreement for a subsidiary of the U Corporation. Clearly, Sarah hadn't had a chance to sign it before Mike's surprise return. She thought Kevin's note was a green light for the night, so she had eagerly prepared these documents as a show of loyalty, even changing into her battle attire, ready to welcome the lover she thought would be sneaking into her room. Unfortunately for her, it was her husband who walked through the door. "No, it's not like that," Sarah sobbed, her panicked eyes darting towards Kevin as if pleading for help. Kevin stood frozen, his face whiter than a sheet. He obviously recognized the documents. They were related to assets he had been trying to get from me for months, assets I had never relinquished. "Jessica, what in God's name is happening here?" My mother-in-law's sharp voice cut through the chaos, her habit of finding someone to blame instinctively turning on me. I leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, a faint, cold smile on my lips. "I'd like to know that too. My sister-in-law, dressed like this in the middle of the night, holding a stock agreement that Kevin has been begging me for. Who exactly was she waiting for?" My words fell like a bucket of ice water, extinguishing any lingering hope in the room. The air in the living room was thick and suffocating, like congealed grease. It was 3 a.m., and the entire Chang family was assembled. Sarah, wrapped in her beige cashmere coat over the inappropriate lace teddy, wept in an armchair. Mike sat in the main sofa, a cigarette dangling from his trembling hand, unable to even light it. My father and mother-in-law sat stiffly, their faces ashen, their eyes darting between Sarah, Kevin, and me. And Kevin, my wonderful husband, stood by the coffee table with a look of stern righteousness, his brow furrowed as if he were the most aggrieved victim in the room. "Talk." Mike finally managed to light his cigarette, taking a deep drag. "Sarah, you're going to give me an explanation. Right now. What was that note? Where did those documents come from?" Sarah looked up, her eyes swollen. Trembling, she pulled the note I had forged from her coat pocket and placed it on the coffee table. It was from Kevin," she whispered, her voice barely audible but explosive in the silent room. All eyes snapped to Kevin. His pupils contracted, but his recovery was instantaneous. He adopted an expression of utter shock. "Sarah, you can't just say things like that. When did I ever write you something like this?" He snatched the note, glanced at it, and then let out a laugh of angry disbelief, slapping it back down on the table. "My brother's not coming home tonight. Yes, this is my handwriting. But I never wrote this. This is a forgery. Someone is trying to frame me." His gaze shot towards me, a venomous glint in his eyes that he quickly masked with a look of wounded betrayal. "Jessica, you were the only one near my study these past few days. Was it you? Are you doing this to get back at me because I've been busy with work and haven't been paying enough attention to you? Or have you always looked down on my family and wanted to drive a wedge between my brother and me?" It was a masterful deflection. The old Jessica, the one who lived to please her husband, would probably be stammering out an explanation, maybe even taking the blame to keep the peace. But the new me found it laughable. "Kevin, let me get this straight," I said, my voice calm and even as I met his gaze. "You're suggesting that in order to frame you, I not only forged your handwriting, but I also predicted that your brother would come home early tonight, and then somehow forced Sarah to put on lingerie and pull out stock agreements that I didn't even know existed? Don't you think your logic gives me a little too much credit? Then how do you explain the handwriting?" My mother-in-law interjected, her maternal instinct to protect her son making me the immediate target. "Jessica, it's not that I want to criticize you, but you've always been too calculating. Sarah can be a bit clueless, but she would never do something so shameful on her own. There must be a misunderstanding." "A misunderstanding?" Mike sneered, pointing at the documents on the floor. "Mom, is this a misunderstanding too? Sarah was trying to sell my house. She was trying to transfer shares of Jessica's company to God knows who. Did Jessica force her to do that too?" Seeing her mother-in-law defending her, Sarah seemed to grasp at a lifeline. "It was Jessica. It really was," she cried out. "She was the one who got my clothes from the terrace this afternoon. The note appeared after that. I thought it was..." "You thought it was what?" I cut her off coldly. I walked towards her, standing over her, looking down. "Sarah, are you trying to say you thought it was a secret message from Kevin? Then tell me, after receiving this so-called secret message, why did you dress like that? Why did you get those documents? What were you waiting for Kevin to do in your room?" Sarah was cornered. Her mouth hung open, her face deathly pale. She couldn't speak. She couldn't tell the truth, because admitting she was having an affair with Kevin would mean she was finished in this family. Her only option was to play the victim. I just, she stammered. Kevin, seeing his chance, stepped between us, his posture radiating righteous indignation. "Jessica, stop pressuring her. She was obviously confused and manipulated by someone. There are too many loose ends here. We can't jump to conclusions. Let's handle this internally and not let outsiders laugh at us." There it was again. Muddy the waters, then use the "don't air our dirty laundry in public" card to shut everyone up. I looked at Kevin's utterly hypocritical face, and the last shred of warmth in my heart evaporated. This man didn't just want my money, he wanted to destroy me, and when he was exposed, he didn't hesitate to throw me under the bus. I let out a soft laugh and stepped back, sinking gracefully onto the sofa and smoothing my robe. "Since you all seem to think I'm the mastermind here, then fine. To clear my name and to give everyone the truth, I think there's something you all need to see." I took out my phone. The screen's glow seemed unnaturally bright in the dim living room. Kevin's eye twitched. A sense of dread made him instinctively reach for my phone. "What are you doing? Are you trying to cause more trouble at this hour?" "Not causing trouble. Just setting the record straight." I dodged his hand and connected my phone to the massive flat-screen TV in the living room. "You all say the note is a fake. You say Sarah and I are framing Kevin. So let's see who's really lying." I opened a folder containing several video files. "Kevin, You probably forgot, I said, my tone as gentle as if we were reminiscing. 3 months ago, you said you wanted to discuss some big projects at the Gilded Bean downtown, and you had me get you a premium VIP membership there. As a VIP client, the private rooms have a security camera service. It's usually off, but if you set a special monitoring request on the account, it records everything. The color drained from Kevin's face. He stood frozen, as if his spine had been ripped out. What did you say? His voice trembled. I said I'd like to invite everyone to watch a movie. I pressed play. The TV screen lit up. The picture quality was crystal clear. The setting was an elegantly decorated private cafe room. A man and a woman were sitting across from each other. The man was Kevin. The woman was Sarah. The timestamp read, last Tuesday, 10 p.m. In the video, Kevin was holding Sarah's hand. Just be patient a little longer, my love, he said tenderly. Get the deed for the old house first. Once I transfer those projects out of Jessica's control, we won't have to answer to anyone. I'll take you to Europe. Sarah, in the video, looked up at him coyly. You better not be lying to me. That shrew is getting smarter. I think she's been looking at the accounts lately. Don't worry, Kevin said. She's just a spoiled rich girl who only knows how to spend money. What does she know about running a company? As long as you cooperate and sign that nominee agreement, I have plenty of ways to sideline her. The dialogue was perfectly clear. Every word was a sharp slap across the face of everyone in that house. My mother-in-law's teacup crashed to the floor, shattering into pieces. My father-in-law's eyes widened, his lips trembling as he pointed at the screen. Mike shot to his feet, his eyes nearly bulging out of their sockets, staring at the adulterous pair on the screen. And the real Sarah had long since collapsed onto the sofa, her face the color of ash. I pressed pause. The image froze on Kevin's greedy, triumphant face. I stood up and surveyed the room, my gaze finally landing on the swaying, broken figure of my husband. Now, does anyone still think I forged that note? This was my counterattack. No screaming, no fighting, just slicing open the bloody truth and laying it bare for them all to see. The image on the TV screen was frozen, a giant portrait commemorating the farcical end of my 5-year marriage. Kevin finally moved. He was no longer the refined husband, no longer the wronged brother. He was a demon with its mask torn off, his facial muscles contorting with extreme fear and rage. Jessica, you, he snarled, lunging for the coffee table, trying to rip out the HDMI cable as if turning off the TV could erase reality. But Mike was faster. Thud. Mike's foot connected squarely with Kevin's stomach. The kick was filled with all his accumulated fury. Kevin curled up on the floor like a shrimp, gagging painfully. You animal! You goddamn animal! Mike jumped on top of him, his fists raining down like hailstones. That's your sister-in-law? That's my wife? And you were trying to steal my house. Are you even human? Stop it! Stop! You'll kill him! My mother-in-law shrieked, rushing forward to pull them apart. My father-in-law, trembling, also tried to intervene. The scene descended into chaos. I stood on the edge of the turmoil, a cold observer. Kevin's screams, Sarah's sobs, and my mother-in-law's wails intertwined into a symphony of irony. This was the harmonious family I had once tried so desperately to protect. How ugly, how fragile. After what felt like an eternity, Mike was finally pulled away. Kevin lay on the floor, his face bruised and swollen, blood trickling from the corner of his mouth. His designer shirt was torn to shreds. He coughed and struggled to sit up, wiping the blood from his lips. When he looked up at me, all pretense was gone. His eyes were filled with naked, venomous hatred. You knew, didn't you? Kevin spat out a mouthful of blood, his voice hoarse. You knew about me and Sarah all along. And you kept playing the part of the perfect wife, just waiting for this moment to watch my whole family become a joke. I did, I admitted without hesitation. If it wasn't to find out exactly what you were trying to take from me, I would have thrown you out long ago. Throw me out? Kevin laughed as if he'd heard the funniest joke in the world. He used the coffee table to pull himself to his feet, swaying but with a newfound arrogance. Jessica, don't forget, I'm the vice president of the company. Most of the business operations are in my hands. The corporate seals for the core projects are with me. You think you can get rid of me? Believe it or not, I can make the U Corp stock tank tomorrow morning. The fangs were finally out. This was the real Kevin, the man who married into my family 5 years ago, outwardly humble but inwardly consumed by ambition. He had been planning this all along, using my trust to gradually seize control of my company. And you, Kevin turned to the terrified Sarah, sneering. Don't act so innocent. You saw the video. You were greedy for a piece of the U fortune. Now that it's all blown up, fine. We can all go down together. Jessica, we're not divorced yet. Community property laws mean you'll have to give me half of everything. Sarah was so frightened by his vicious glare that she couldn't even cry. My father-in-law finally regained his composure, slamming his cane on the floor. A disgrace, a complete disgrace. Kevin, how could you do this? How could you do this to your brother? To Jessica? Do this? Kevin spun around and roared at his own father. Since we were kids, all you ever saw was Mike. He got the best of everything. What about me? I got into a top university, worked at a major corporation, married a wealthy heiress, and in your eyes, I'm still just a gold digger. I've worked like a dog at the U Corporation for 5 years, and has anyone ever respected me? I'm taking back what's mine. What's wrong with that? His roars echoed through the living room, chilling everyone to the bone. I looked at this hysterical man, feeling a strange sense of calm. The man who used to pick me up from work on rainy days, who made me a hot water bottle when I had cramps, had apparently been living in a world of resentment all along. What's yours? I took a step forward, the click of my heels sharp on the wooden floor. Kevin, do you have some misunderstanding of the law? Or do you really think I wouldn't find out about the fake accounts you set up and the assets you transferred? Kevin's pupils contracted. What do you mean? I gave you a chance, I said, pulling a file from my purse. It was a preliminary asset summary my lawyer, Mr. Peterson, had prepared for me. If it was just cheating, we could have had an amicable divorce. But you should never, ever have touched the company my father left me. That was my bottom line. I threw the file in front of him. This is the $3.7 million you siphoned off over the past 6 months through fraudulent expense reports and related party transactions. You were sneaky, but if I want to investigate, every single transaction can be traced. Kevin, this isn't just a divorce dispute. This is corporate embezzlement. This is jail time. You're bluffing. Kevin's face changed, but he tried to hold his ground. I'm a senior executive. Those were all normal business dealings. The police and a forensic audit will determine if they were normal, I said, glancing at my watch. It was 4 a.m. And just a friendly reminder, the moment that video was exposed, I notified company security. Your access card has been deactivated. First thing tomorrow morning, I will call an emergency board meeting to propose your removal as vice president. Kevin finally panicked. He never expected me to be so fast, so ruthless. He had always seen me as a sheltered heiress who only knew about design, not management. He thought that by winning me over, he could win my fortune. Jessica, you can't do this. My mother-in-law, hearing the word jail, rushed over and grabbed my arm. He's your husband, for better or for worse. How can you send him to prison? He made a mistake. Let him fix it. Hit him, yell at him, whatever you want. Just don't call the police. Mom, Mike shouted from the side. Did you not see what he did? He was trying to steal my house. You're still protecting this animal? But he's your brother, she wailed. I gently pulled my arm away from her grasp, my gaze cold as I watched the family circus unfold. Mom, I already gave him his chances. I straightened my robe and walked towards the front door. I won't be staying here tonight. Kevin, be at the courthouse at 9 a.m. tomorrow with your ID. Maybe then we can discuss how to end this with a shred of dignity. I paused at the door and turned back, giving him one last icy glare. If you don't show up, then wait for a summons from my lawyer. With that, I pushed open the door. The storm outside was raging. A cold wind carrying droplets of rain hit my face, but it felt incredibly refreshing, clarifying. Behind me, I could hear Kevin's roars and my mother-in-law's sobs, but I didn't look back. The war had begun. And I would not lose. After leaving the Cheng house, I didn't go back to our downtown penthouse. Instead, I drove directly to the Four Seasons and checked into a long-term executive suite. The 24/7's security and privacy were exactly what I needed. At 5 a.m., I sat by the floor-to-ceiling window, watching the city slowly awaken in the downpour. I held a cup of hot coffee, a wave of exhaustion washing over me, yet my mind was buzzing with adrenaline. There was no time to rest. I called my lawyer, Mr. Peterson. "Peter, sorry to call so early. I'm ready." Peter was my father's closest friend and the U Corporation's chief legal counsel. On his deathbed, my father had made Peter promise to look after me. Though Peter was semi-retired, he remained a consultant and had always been skeptical of my ill-matched marriage. Peter's calm, steady voice came through the line. "Jessica, you've finally seen the light." "I have." I took a deep breath. "I'm initiating Plan D." At 9 a.m., I was at Peter's private law firm. His hair was silver, but he was as sharp as ever. He didn't waste time with pleasantries, simply pushed a thick stack of documents across the desk to me. "Here are the asset preservation requests you wanted. My team worked through the night to finalize them. Once you sign, we'll file with the court immediately to freeze all of Kevin's bank accounts, brokerage accounts, and any corporate funds he has access to as VP." I picked up the pen and signed my name without a moment's hesitation. "Second," Peter opened another file, "regarding the corporate bylaws. Although you're the majority shareholder, Kevin has spent years planting his own people in the company, especially in finance and marketing. To take him down, you have to cut off his limbs first. I've compiled a list. All of these people have compliance violations on their records. They can be cleaned out at any time." I looked at the familiar names on the list, a chill running down my spine. While I was living in my happy ever-after fantasy, Kevin had already riddled my company with holes. "Talk to them one by one," I said, closing the file, my eyes glinting with resolve. "Anyone who doesn't accept a severance package gets hit with a lawsuit. I want this company airtight within a week." "Good." Peter nodded in approval, his expression turning more complex. "Jessica, there's one more thing. The video proves his infidelity and intent to transfer assets, but it's just short of being direct evidence for a criminal conviction. We need something more concrete. The original forged documents, specific transaction records. I know." I pulled a flash drive from my bag. "I copied this from Kevin's study last night during the chaos. He deleted the records from his laptop, but I installed a ghost imaging software on it a while back. This has his email correspondence with several shell companies and drafts of contracts where he practiced forging my signature." Peter took the flash drive, a flash of surprise in his eyes that quickly turned to pride. "Jessica, you're even more decisive than your father. With this, even if Kevin doesn't go down for good, he'll lose a layer of skin." In that moment, I felt a long-lost sense of security. Not from a man's promise, but from legal evidence and meticulous logic. This was my arsenal. This was my ammunition. "Peter, one more thing," I said, standing and walking to the window, watching the traffic below. "I want Kevin to leave with nothing. That's not enough. I want him to spit out every single cent he swallowed, with interest." I paused. "And Sarah?" My mind conjured her greedy, cowardly face. "Sarah is the weak link," Peter said, seemingly reading my mind. "She and Kevin are partners in crime, but their alliance is extremely fragile. The moment there's an unequal distribution of risk or reward, they'll turn on each other. I understand." I turned back, a cold smile touching my lips, which is why I'm not going to sue her directly. First, I'm going to give her a little hope, and then I'm going to crush it. When I left the law firm, the rain had stopped. The sun broke through the clouds, its glare almost blinding. I took out my phone and saw dozens of texts and missed calls from Kevin. The messages ranged from desperate apologies to furious threats, a veritable exhibition of human ugliness. I didn't reply. I just blocked his number. I wanted him to panic, to be suspicious, to have no idea where my next move would land. The fear of the unknown is the most potent torture. Next, I had to see someone, a pawn in this chess game who was crucial, yet easily overlooked. Mike. I chose an old-school tea house for our meeting. It was quiet, with private rooms, and most importantly, close to the logistics hub where Mike often worked. Mike arrived at 2 p.m. sharp. He looked 10 years older than he had the night before. Unshaven, his eyes were bloodshot, and his usual work jacket was covered in cigarette ash. When he saw me, his gaze was evasive, filled with guilt and shame. "Jessica," he started, his voice hoarse. I'm so sorry about what happened. It's my fault." I should have kept a better eye on her. I poured him a cup of tea, my voice even. It's not your fault, Mike. We're both victims here. Mike's hand trembled as he held the cup. He threw his head back and downed the scalding tea, as if trying to burn away the fire in his heart. I've locked Sarah in the house. She says Kevin forced her, that if she didn't listen, he'd get me fired from the depot. Jessica, what kind of world is this? A man screws his own brother's wife over money? I could see Mike was wavering. Sarah was smart. She knew Mike was sentimental and a soft touch. Blaming Kevin and painting herself as a coerced victim was her only way out. If Mike softened, the fire I had started would die out. She says she was forced. I set down the teapot and took a folder from my bag. It contained the bank records Peter had pulled for Sarah's accounts. Then take a look at this. Mike took the file, his expression puzzled. As he flipped through the pages, his face turned to stone. This is a secret account in Sarah's name, I said, pointing to several large deposits. 3 months ago, $50,000. 2 months ago, $100,000. And last week, just before they planned to make their move, a transfer of $200,000. The sender used a few shell companies to cover their tracks, but the beneficial owner of all of them is Kevin. I leaned forward. Mike, if she was being forced, why was she getting paid? If she was being coerced, was this $350,000 for pain and suffering? Mike's fingers gripped the thin pages so tightly his knuckles turned white. And I wasn't done. I took out my phone and played the latter half of the video, the part I hadn't shown at the house. Listen to this, I said. In the video, Sarah was nestled against Kevin, giggling. Kev, once we get the money, let's go abroad. We can leave that thick-headed Mike back home to guard that run-down house for the rest of his life. It's not like he can have kids anyway. He's a dead end. That was the final straw. Smash. Mike threw the teacup against the floor, where it shattered. He was a traditional man. Family and brotherhood were everything to him. Sarah had not only betrayed him, but she had mocked his infertility, a result of a trucking accident years ago, and had planned to abandon him. Bitch, a pair of goddamn snakes. Mike clutched his head, letting out a low, animalistic groan, tears and snot streaming down his face. I watched him silently, letting him vent. When he had calmed down slightly, I spoke. Mike, Kevin wasn't just targeting me. He was targeting you too. He looks down on me, and he looks down on you even more. In his eyes, we're just blood bags for him to drain and discard. The only reason Sarah is blaming him now is because she knows he's finished. She wants to use you as her next host. Mike looked up, his red eyes filled with murderous rage. Jessica, tell me what to do. Whatever it takes to bring those two down, I'll do it. I'll give you my life. I don't want your life, Mike, I said, handing him a napkin. I want you to be a witness for me. What kind of witness? Sarah is locked up at your place, unable to coordinate with Kevin. I want you to go back and tell her that Kevin has thrown her completely under the bus. Tell her he's claiming she was the mastermind, that she seduced him, that she was the one trying to steal the U fortune. Tell her that to save himself, Kevin has already given me all the evidence of their asset transfers. It was a classic divide and conquer strategy, the prisoner's dilemma. Mike paused, then his eyes lit up with understanding. You want her to panic and turn on him. I nodded. As soon as she believes Kevin has betrayed her, she'll do anything to save herself. She'll sing like a canary. She must have more dirt on him, some crucial piece of evidence he doesn't know she has. I want it. Mike took a deep breath and stood up, nodding firmly. Okay, I'm going back right now. If this family is rotten, then let's smash it to pieces. Watching his retreating figure, I knew Kevin's left flank was now completely exposed. The once solid alliance of greed, built on secrets, was about to crumble under the weight of paranoia and fear. Next on the list were Kevin's cronies at the office. I walked out of the tea house. Dark clouds were gathering again on the horizon. A storm was coming, but this time, I was the one holding the lightning. 3 hours after Mike left, my phone rang. The background was chaotic. I could faintly hear a woman screaming and the sound of breaking china. Mike was breathing heavily, his voice a mixture of vengeful satisfaction and profound exhaustion. Jessica, she talked. My hand tightened around the phone. I immediately hit the record button. Mike, slow down. What did she say? That bitch, Mike spat. I told her what you said, that Kevin blamed everything on her and gave you the evidence. At first, she didn't believe me. So I bluffed. I told her that to beg for your forgiveness, Kevin even told you about the Swiss bank account. The Swiss bank account. It was a guess, a lure I had concocted based on a few fragments I found on Kevin's computer. I never imagined it was real. The second she heard that, she lost it. Mike's voice trembled. She started screaming about how heartless Kevin was, then started crying and begging me to forgive her. She said Kevin opened that account in her name. It has almost $2 million in it. It's all the kickbacks he's taken from company projects over the years. And some of it was money he laundered through my trucking company. My heart sank. Money laundering. Kevin was even more audacious than I thought. Embezzlement meant a few years in prison. Money laundering was a whole different league, and he had dragged Mike's company into it. Mike, did you know about this? I asked sternly. How would I know? Mike exclaimed. He just said some payments were better handled through private accounts to avoid taxes and asked for a favor. He's my brother. I never thought he'd screw me over like that. I had no idea he was using my company as a front. Okay, Mike, don't panic. If you were unaware and you cooperate fully with the investigation, you should be fine, I reassured him. Does Sarah have proof? Yes. She said Kevin kept some transaction records and screenshots of their chats to control her. They're on her old phone, hidden under the mattress. I have it now. Perfect. Mike, I need you to take that phone to Mr. Peterson's office immediately. I'll text you the address. Don't let anyone see you, especially not Mom and Dad. Don't worry. Those two are useless right now. They just sit around crying, Mike said before hanging up. That was it. Sarah had completely broken. Consumed by fear and the fury of betrayal, she had not only exposed Kevin's biggest secret, but had also handed over the smoking gun. Right now, the Cheng house must be in ruins. I could picture Sarah's hysterics, my in-laws' helplessness in the face of this scandal. The home that once appeared so glossy and full of laughter had finally revealed its rotten core. I felt no sympathy. This was the price of their greed. The next morning, I heard from Peter. The evidence from Sarah was a complete chain, more than enough to prove Kevin was involved in major financial crimes. Jessica, once we submit this, Kevin is looking at a minimum of 10 years, Peter said over the phone. But it also means Mike's logistics company will face an investigation, possibly fines and seizure. I was silent for a moment. Mike was an unwitting accomplice, but an accomplice nonetheless. Protect Mike, I decided. Peter, I want you to build a defense for him. Prove his lack of knowledge and pin all the responsibility on Kevin and Sarah. If there are fines he can't pay, I'll cover them. Are you sure? Peter sounded surprised. That could be a substantial amount. Mike was the weapon that broke their alliance. I can't let the weapon break, I said, looking out at the city skyline, my gaze firm. And compared to what I'm about to get back, it's nothing. In this cold game of interests, retaining a sliver of humanity was perhaps the biggest difference between Kevin and me. Meanwhile, Kevin started making moves. He must have realized Sarah was incommunicado. He called Mike countless times, to no avail. Finally, he called me. I didn't answer. Let him stew in his fear a little longer. With the home front secured, it was time for a frontal assault on the business battlefield. Monday morning. U Corporation headquarters. I walked into the spacious boardroom wearing a sharply tailored dark power suit and 3-inch heels for the first time in my capacity as acting chairwoman. The long table was lined with company executives and board members. Kevin was there, but he wasn't in the vice president's seat. He was relegated to the far end of the table. He looked gaunt, with dark circles under his eyes and a scruffy beard. When he saw me, a hateful look flashed across his face before he replaced it with a look of victimized grievance. Ladies and gentlemen, members of the board, I said, standing at the head of the table. I scanned the room. I've called this emergency meeting for one reason, to initiate a full internal forensic audit. The room erupted in murmurs. For any company, an internal audit was an earthquake. Miss Yu, isn't this a bit sudden? Mark, the head of marketing, was the first to object. He was one of Kevin's loyalists. Sudden? I shot him a cold look. In last quarter's financial report, there were 3 marketing expenditures totaling $5 million with no clear destination. As the department head, Mr. Dodd Thompson Shouldn't you be more anxious to get to the bottom of this than I am? Mark turned pale and stammered, unable to respond. Jessica, Kevin finally spoke, standing up, his voice hoarse. I know we've had a misunderstanding at home, but you can't bring personal matters into the company. An audit right now will create panic among the employees and hurt our stock price. It was a clever move, framing my actions as a personal vendetta and using the board's sensitivity to the stock price to pressure me. As expected, a few of the older board members started whispering, their faces showing concern. Jessica, maybe we should reconsider, said Mr. Lee, one of the board members. Kevin has contributed a lot to the company these past few years. There's no need to make things so ugly. I looked at these so-called elders, laughing coldly to myself. I knew exactly how much Kevin had been greasing their palms. Mr. Lee is right. The company must continue to operate, I said, clicking a remote. A detailed data report appeared on the projection screen, which is why I have engaged a forensic accounting team from PricewaterhouseCoopers. They will conduct a compliance review of all projects exceeding $500,000 from the past 3 years without disrupting normal business operations. The name PricewaterhouseCoopers made Kevin's pupils shrink. PwC was the top of the line, incorruptible. Furthermore, I continued, my voice hardening, as a matter of principle during this audit, I propose the immediate suspension of Kevin Cheng from his duties as vice president. I will personally take over all projects under his purview until the audit results are finalized. Mr. Cheng is not to have access to any core company documents or financial systems. On what grounds? Kevin slammed his hand on the table, his composure finally cracking. I was appointed by the board. You have no authority to suspend me without a board resolution. I do. I pulled a document from my folder. It was a special authorization letter left by my father. According to my father's will, in the event of significant operational risk or suspected major violations by senior management, as his successor, I hold veto power and the right of emergency appointments. This was my trump card. I had never used it, wanting to preserve Kevin's ego, to let him believe he had earned his position. Now, I was tearing that illusion to shreds myself. Kevin stared at the document, his face twitching. He knew it was over. Fine, he hissed, pointing a finger at me. Jessica, you're ruthless. This isn't over. He grabbed his jacket and stormed out. Mark tried to follow, but I stopped him. Mr. Thompson, where are you going? I looked at him, my eyes like daggers. The auditors are already waiting outside your office. Or would you prefer to explain the $5 million to the police right now? Mark's legs gave out, and he collapsed back into his chair. The boardroom was silent. Everyone realized that the once gentle heiress had transformed into a decisive, formidable queen. Back in my office, I found myself trembling slightly. Not from fear, but from the release of immense tension. But I knew this was only the beginning. Kevin would not go down without a fight. The audit proceeded more smoothly than I expected. The professional team dug deep, and Kevin's carefully concealed financial misdeeds were dragged out one by one like rats from a sewer. Inflated procurement costs, shell companies, kickbacks from suppliers, each charge was enough to send him to prison for a long time. Just when I thought victory was within my grasp, Kevin launched his counterattack. It was more vicious and desperate than I could have imagined. Wednesday evening, I had just returned to my hotel suite when my phone began to explode. Social media notifications, messages from friends, even abusive texts from unknown numbers flooded in like a tsunami. I clicked on the top trending topic on Twitter, number heiress from hell drives husband mad. The link led to a carefully edited video. In it, my in-laws were sitting in wheelchairs. They were perfectly capable of walking, outside the U Corporation headquarters, holding banners. They were crying, accusing me. Our cruel daughter-in-law Jessica Yu threw us out of our home. She abuses our son. She's a monster. We have nowhere to go. The accompanying article was pure sensationalism, painting me as a tyrannical, wealthy woman who used her money to control her entire family. It hinted at a promiscuous private life and even fabricated a history of mental illness. Meanwhile, so-called insiders filled the comments. I heard he married into the family, worked like a dog for years, and now that the company's successful, she wants to kick him out. So sad. Gold diggers are bad, but this is just evil. Using him and then tossing him aside. Public opinion, in an online world rife with resentment towards the wealthy, instantly turned against me. The evil, rich wife was the perfect target. I stared at the venomous curses on the screen, shaking with rage. Kevin, you are truly something else, using your own parents to play the victim, using public opinion as a weapon. This move of moral blackmail was indeed vicious. Then my phone rang. It was the head of corporate communications. Miss, we have a problem. Several news crews have shown up, demanding an interview about the abuse allegations. The entrance is swarmed. Employees can't get out. Hold them off. Don't let them in. I'm on my way, I said. I hung up, but before I could even think, there was a knock on my suite door. Room service. I peered through the peephole. A man in a hotel uniform stood with a food trolley, but something was wrong. I hadn't ordered anything, and he was wearing a mask, his eyes darting around nervously. Just leave it outside the door, I called out. Ma'am, it's a special order. I need your signature, he insisted. This was not right. I backed away from the door, grabbing a fruit knife from the table while dialing the front desk on my other phone. This is Jessica Yu in suite 1808. There's someone at my door impersonating staff. Send security up, now. Just then, the door began to shudder with heavy blows. Jessica, come out! You've ruined our lives. You're not getting away with this. It was Kevin's voice. He had found me. The door bucked in its frame, accompanied by Kevin's hysterical screaming. You think you can hide in here? I'm finished, and I'm taking you with me. Open this door. I'm going to kill you. Fear seized me. This was the final, desperate act of a cornered man. Kevin, calm down. The police are on their way, I yelled, trying to buy time. Police? Ha 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 ha! I'm not afraid of the police. I'm going to prison anyway. I might as well take you with me. The pounding grew louder. The lock was starting to give way. I retreated to the balcony, feeling dizzy as I looked down 18 stories. Was I going to die here, at the hands of this madman? Just as the lock was about to splinter, I heard the sound of running footsteps and shouts from the hallway. Hey, what are you doing? Stop! Get him! A fierce struggle ensued. Kevin's curses faded as he was dragged away, his voice turning into a pathetic wail. I collapsed onto the floor, the fruit knife clattering beside me. Cold sweat drenched my back. That night, I saw the true depths of human depravity. Kevin was no longer just a criminal. He was a desperate man capable of murder, and it solidified my resolve. When dealing with evil, there can be no mercy. It must be a fatal blow. Kevin's rampage at the hotel got him arrested. Although he was only held on a short administrative detention since no actual harm was done, it bought me precious time to strategize. Faced with the tidal wave of online hate, I didn't rush to defend myself. In this post-truth era, the first to frantically plead their case often loses. The public's outrage is a tide. It comes in fast and goes out just as quickly. Only a bigger wave can overtake the last one. Jessica, the media pressure is immense. The stock has already dropped 5 points. The board is demanding a response, Peter said, his voice tense over the phone. Tell them to let the bullets fly a little longer, I replied. I was in his conference room, watching the real-time data on public opinion, as calm as an outsider. But, Peter, the best time for a reversal is when the public's anger is at its peak, when the accusations are at their most vicious, I interrupted. Every curse they hurl at me now will be a slap across Kevin's face later. Friday, 10 a.m. The online vitriol had reached its zenith. Some radical netizens were even threatening to dox me and send me death threats. Now, I nodded at Peter. Release it. The first wave of my counterattack was a formal statement from Peter's law firm. It was concise, unemotional, and devoid of any plea for sympathy, just cold, hard facts and legal statutes. Mr. Kevin Chang has been suspended from his duties and is under audit for suspicion of major corporate embezzlement and commercial fraud. The allegations of elder abuse are fabricated. Mr. and Mrs. Chang are in good health and reside in a property owned by Miss Yu, for which they receive a monthly stipend of $20,000 for their living expenses. Attached. Bank transfer records. The claim of driving her husband mad is false. Mr. Chang's actions were the result of emotional instability following the exposure of his personal misconduct. Attached, hotel security footage showing Kevin attempting to break into a guest room before being subdued by security. The statement dropped like a bomb. Whoa, plot twist. He tried to break down her door with a knife? That's attempted murder. $20K a month stipend is abuse? Sign me up for that kind of abuse. So he was embezzling and then tried to play the victim? Disgusting. But that wasn't enough. That was defense. I wanted to go on the offensive. 30 minutes later, a major celebrity gossip blog received an anonymous tip. The tip was a nuclear bomb. It contained a set of photos and a video. In the photos, Kevin was seen with his arm around a beautiful young woman at a real estate sales office. This woman was not Sarah. She was Kevin's real mistress, an aspiring model named Lily. It turned out Sarah was just another pawn. The person Kevin actually planned to take to Europe was this young, beautiful model. The video was a recording of a conversation between Kevin and Lily in his car. Babe, just a little longer. That old hag, referring to me, and that dumb sister-in-law, referring to Sarah, are both wrapped around my little finger. Once the money is secure, we're out of here. We'll let that whole family of dogs tear each other apart. The exposé went viral, nearly crashing the internet. Oh my God, this guy is the king of scumbags. He even scammed his own sister-in-law. End quote. This is the final boss of all gold diggers. He didn't just want her money, he wanted to destroy her entire family. I feel so bad for the wife. Cheated on, embezzled from, and then smeared all over the internet. Send this man to jail. Do not pass. Go. Overnight, Kevin went from being a sympathetic victim to a universally reviled villain. His social media accounts were flooded with hate. Netizens even managed to track down his parents' address and started throwing eggs at their house. This was how you win a PR war. I didn't need to get into the mud myself. I just had to feed the public the truth, piece by piece, and their outrage would do the rest. At that moment, Kevin, just released from detention, was walking into a hell of his own making. The public relations tsunami completely shattered Kevin's reputation. The video of him with Lily was the final nail in his social coffin. The man who had wept on camera about being oppressed by his wealthy wife was now exposed, his true, vile nature laid bare for the world to see. For a few days, I watched from my suite at the Four Seasons, a detached god observing an ant scurrying on a hot plate. He bombarded my phone with messages, starting with desperate pleas. Jessica, please, let me explain. The thing with Lily was a setup. And escalating to venomous threats. Jessica, you poisonous bitch, you think you can destroy me? It won't be that easy. If I go down, we all go down. I didn't reply to a single one. I simply read them, watching a drowning man's final, pathetic struggles. But I knew he wasn't finished. A man as arrogant and greedy as Kevin would never admit defeat until the very end. He had one last card to play: the company. Although I had suspended him and initiated an audit, he had been VP for 3 years. The loyalists he had placed in the finance department, the backdoors he had built into contracts, these were the chips he thought he could use to turn the tables. Monday night, a torrential downpour engulfed the city. I received a call from Mr. Johnson, the head of company security. He was a retired Marine and one of my father's most loyal employees. "Miss Yu, the fish has taken the bait." Mr. Johnson's voice was low, masked by the sound of the rain. 10 minutes ago, Kevin Cheng used a backup keycard to enter the building through the fire escape in the parking garage. He's heading to the 28th floor. Finance. My hand tightened around the phone, my heart pounding. It was finally happening. The backup keycard I had intentionally left active was the bait, designed to lure him into this fatal mistake when he felt he had no other options. "Don't alert him," I instructed calmly. "Record everything. His entry into the finance department, him opening the safe. I want it all in high definition, continuous shot, no breaks. Understood. And the police? Call them the second he has the items in his hand. I want him caught red-handed." I hung up and opened my laptop, connecting to the live feed from the hidden cameras in the finance department. The screen showed a grainy, night vision view. The glass door to the department swung open, and a figure in a black raincoat and a mask slipped inside. I couldn't see his face, but I'd recognize that furtive posture anywhere. Kevin. He skillfully avoided the main hallway cameras, unaware of the new pinhole cameras Mr. Johnson had installed. He went straight for the CFO's office. His hands were shaking as he fumbled for the spare key, dropping a stack of files in his nervousness. Even in his desperation, his nerve was clearly failing him. Finally, he opened the main vault. He took out the corporate seal and several books of blank, signed corporate checks. With these, he could forge loan agreements, wire out all of the company's remaining liquid assets, and disappear with the money and Lily if she was even still waiting for him. As he clutched the items to his chest, his eyes gleaming with a mixture of greed and crazed determination, I felt a profound sense of sorrow. This was the man I had loved for 5 years. For money, he had become a monster. "Call them," I texted Mr. Johnson. 20 minutes later, sirens sliced through the rainy night. I watched on the monitor as police officers stormed the office and slammed Kevin against a desk. His face was pressed against the cold surface as the corporate seal fell from his jacket and rolled away. His eyes were wide with terror, defiance, and a hysterical madness. "Let me go. I'm the vice president. I'm taking these for work. You have no right to arrest me," he shrieked, his voice echoing in the empty office. "It's 2 a.m., Mr. Cheng," the lead officer said coldly, "and the call we received was for breaking and entering. You can tell us the rest of your story down at the station." Watching them lead Kevin away in handcuffs, I let out a long, slow breath. The game was over. I had won, or so I thought. The next morning, I was called to the police station to give my statement. I expected to see a defeated Kevin awaiting his fate. I was wrong. In the interview room, I found not only Kevin, but also his parents and a middle-aged man in a white coat and gold-rimmed glasses. Kevin was slumped in a chair, his eyes unfocused, drool trickling from the corner of his mouth. He was mumbling incoherently, "Don't kill me. It's all mine. The money is all mine." If I didn't know him, I would have thought he was genuinely intellectually disabled. "You evil woman." His mother lunged at me the moment I walked in, only to be restrained by a female officer. "Look what you've done to my son. He's gone mad, and you still won't let him go." His father slammed a thick medical report onto the table with his cane. "Officer, this is my son's diagnosis. He has a history of hereditary mental illness. The stress this woman put him under caused a relapse. He had no idea what he was doing last night." I picked up the report. Severe bipolar disorder with paranoid delusions. The issuing institution was a well-known private psychiatric hospital. The attending physician who signed it was the man with the gold-rimmed glasses. The date of diagnosis was a month ago. Kevin had been preparing for this. He knew that if his crimes were exposed, he would face prison. So he had procured a get-out-of-jail-free card in advance. "I am Mr. Cheng's psychiatrist," the doctor said, pushing up his glasses, his tone professionally detached. "Mr. Cheng suffers from a serious mental illness. During a psychotic episode, he does not possess full criminal culpability. His actions last night, in my professional opinion, were a typical manifestation of a manic episode driven by paranoid delusions." "Delusions?" I scoffed, tossing the report back on the table. "Delusions that allowed him to expertly bypass security cameras? Delusions that led him to the exact location of the spare key and the vault combination? Delusions that included a pre-planned overseas account for the wire transfer?" "That is a classic symptom of paranoid delusions," the doctor replied without flinching. "He subconsciously believed someone was trying to harm him and steal his assets, so he engaged in these defensive, asset-protecting behaviors. The circular logic was so flawless it was nauseating." "Miss, you," the detective in charge said, frowning, "given that the suspect has provided this medical documentation, we will need to conduct our own forensic psychiatric evaluation. Until those results are in, if the family requests bail for medical treatment, we request it." "We need to get our son treatment," Kevin's mother shouted immediately. I looked at Kevin, who was still feigning madness. His head was down, but I caught the fleeting, triumphant twitch at the corner of his mouth. He was trying to use this to escape, but I never imagined his counterattack wasn't just about saving himself. It was about destroying me. Just as I was about to argue, Kevin's father pulled another document from his bag and slapped it on the table. "Officer, since we're on the topic of mental illness, we need to file a report of our own." He pointed a trembling finger at me. "This woman, she's sick too, and her illness is far more severe than my son's." It was a diagnostic report about me, paranoid schizophrenia, patient Jessica Yu. It detailed my recent symptoms, paranoia, auditory hallucinations, extreme emotional instability. My recent actions auditing the company, installing cameras, even staying up late at night were all interpreted as signs of a psychotic break. "Officers," his father pleaded, tears in his eyes. "My son was driven mad by her. She's the one who's truly sick, convinced we're all out to get her and steal her inheritance. That's why she did all of this. We had no choice. For the sake of the company, for our family, we are formally requesting to be granted legal guardianship so we can get her the involuntary commitment she so desperately needs." In that moment, I finally understood. The real checkmate wasn't the model, or the theft, or even the faked insanity. It was this, turning me into a crazy person. If I was declared mentally incompetent, all of my accusations would become the ravings of a lunatic. All the evidence I had gathered would be products of my delusions. And as my legal husband and his parents, they would seamlessly take control of my vast fortune. It was a brilliant, horrifying, and utterly evil plan. Looking at Kevin's venomous glare, which he shot at me between moments of feigned catatonia, I felt a chill seep into my bones. It was followed by a surge of white-hot rage. "You want to play games? You want to have an acting competition?" "Fine, Kevin. You've set the stage. I'll play along in the most insane performance of our lives." The day after I left the police station, I was forcibly escorted to an emergency meeting of the U Corporation's board. This wasn't a meeting I had called. It was convened by Kevin, currently out on bail, and several of the company's old guard directors. The atmosphere in the boardroom was suffocating. The long table was filled with executives and shareholders, their faces a mixture of emotions. On one side of the chairman's platform sat my in-laws, the gold-rimmed doctor, Alan, and two burly male nurses in white uniforms. This wasn't a board meeting, it was an inquisition. I was placed on the opposite side, alone. Mr. Peterson had been barred from entering by security. I was surrounded by wolves. "Everyone," Kevin began. He looked pale, but he was no longer drooling. Instead, he wore an expression of deep sorrow. "I'm sorry to have to call you all here today. As many of you know from yesterday's events at the police station, Jessica is unwell." He gestured to Dr. Allen. "This is Dr. Allen, a leading expert in psychiatry. After a thorough evaluation, he has diagnosed Jessica with a severe case of paranoid schizophrenia. Her recent erratic behavior, the baseless audit, the fabricated videos, her accusations against me, even calling the police are all symptoms of her illness. That is an absolute lie." I shot to my feet, my hands slamming on the table. I glared around the room. Kevin Cheng is a criminal, and the evidence is irrefutable. Instead of investigating his embezzlement, you're all sitting here listening to his slander and questioning my sanity? Have you all lost your minds? My outrage was genuine, but to them, it was just more proof of my instability. Dr. Allen adjusted his glasses and spoke in a calm, condescending tone. "You see? This is a classic symptom of agitated psychosis. The patient lacks impulse control, exhibits hostility, and is convinced of a persecution conspiracy. If we don't intervene, the consequences could be severe." "Then what do we do?" Mr. Lee, the board member Kevin had bought, asked with feigned alarm. "Miss, you controls the majority of the company's shares. What if she has an episode and sells the company or makes some other destructive decision?" That was the cue. My father-in-law stood up, leaning on his cane. As Jessica's father-in-law and guardian, I propose that until she has recovered, all of her corporate duties be suspended. Her legal husband, Kevin Cheng, will assume the role of acting chairman. In the meantime, we will ensure Jessica receives the best care at a private treatment facility. The final move, checkmate. I looked at the faces of these men who had once bowed to my father, who had sworn their loyalty to me. Now, they were avoiding my gaze, exchanging knowing glances. Not one of them spoke up for me. In this world of intertwined interests, the truth didn't matter. What mattered was who could offer them the most benefit. A wave of profound helplessness washed over me. I realized that if I fought back now, I would never walk out of this room. Those two male nurses were watching me like hawks. The slightest resistance, and they would inject me with a powerful sedative under the guise of restraining a patient. Once that happened, I would truly be at their mercy. I had to survive. I had to stay conscious. I took a deep breath. My clenched fists slowly relaxed. The fire in my eyes faded, replaced by confusion, fear, and a carefully measured dose of vulnerability. I sank back into my chair, clutching my head, my body beginning to tremble. "I'm sick?" I mumbled, my voice choked with tears. "Am I really sick? Why do I hear people yelling at me? Why do I feel like you're all trying to hurt me?" I looked up, my eyes vacant, staring at Kevin. Tears streamed down my face. "Kev, am I really crazy? The accounts, the videos, were they all just in my head?" Kevin was momentarily stunned by my sudden change, but then a flash of pure ecstasy crossed his face. He thought his psychological warfare had worked. He thought I had finally broken. He walked over and put his arm around my shoulders, his voice oozing a disgusting, false tenderness. "Jessica, it's okay. You're just tired. You're sick. Just get some rest, and everything will be all right. I'll take care of the company. Mom and Dad will take care of you. I'm so tired," I whispered, leaning into him, using every ounce of my self-control not to vomit. "I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want anything. Just don't lock me up. Don't hurt me." This scene of marital devotion sealed the deal for the other board members. The resolution passed quickly. 30 minutes later, I was being led by the two nurses into a black van. We drove west, into the suburbs. Our destination wasn't a hospital. It was a private villa. Kevin had arranged less of a treatment center and more of a private prison. It was surrounded by high walls, and all the windows were barred. I was locked in the master bedroom on the second floor. My phone was taken, the internet was cut off, there wasn't a single sharp object in the room. Every day, Dr. Allen and a nurse would come to give me my medication. "Time for your medicine, Miss Yu, doctor," Allen would say with a smile, offering me a few colored capsules. "These are imported. They'll help you sleep and stop the bad thoughts." I knew what they were. Heavy doses of tranquilizers and antipsychotics. A healthy person on that regimen would be turned into a vegetable, their mind dulled, their memory fading, until they became a smiling, empty shell. "Thank you, doctor," I'd say, my hand trembling as I took the pills. I would put them in my mouth in front of him and take a large gulp of water, making a swallowing motion. He would check my mouth, satisfied, and then leave. The moment the door locked, I would run to the bathroom, stick my fingers down my throat, and spit out the pills I had hidden under my tongue. I looked at the pale, disheveled woman in the mirror. This wasn't defeat. This was a strategic retreat. I was waiting for the right moment, for the moment of his greatest arrogance, the moment I could bring him down for good. I knew Mr. Peterson hadn't given up on me. Before my phone was taken, we had activated Plan B. The mute cleaning lady at the villa was our secret line of communication. Night fell. The villa was deathly silent. I curled up in bed, clutching a button I had ripped from Kevin's suit jacket when he had comforted me. "You think you've caged me, Kevin? You're wrong. You've just locked yourself in with a wolf sharpening its claws." The days of my confinement were long and mind-numbingly dull. To convince Kevin and my captors that I was truly broken, I began a month-long, immersive performance. I became lethargic, my eyes glazed over. I would talk to myself, laugh and cry for no reason. I drooled while watching TV and spilled soup on my clothes. The two nurses guarding me went from being wary to being complacent, even mocking me openly. Look at her, the great heiress, now no different from a drooling idiot. That medicine is strong stuff. I doubt she'll ever recover. They had no idea that every time they turned their backs, a spark of clarity would flash in my vacant eyes. During that month, news from the outside world reached me through notes, hidden in the clean bedsheets delivered by the mute cleaning lady. Kevin had retaken control. As acting chairman, he began a purge of the U Corporation, firing all my loyal staff and filling key positions with his relatives and cronies. He started signing off on reckless investment deals, using them as a front to funnel company funds into his offshore accounts. He even brought Lily back, parading her around at lavish parties, spending my money without a care in the world. "Jessica, the company's liquid assets are almost gone. He's planning to amend the corporate bylaws at the annual shareholders meeting next week to formally transfer all your shares to himself. Once he does that, the U Corporation will be gone for good." Mr. Peterson's frantic words were practically bleeding through the thin paper. I tore the note to shreds and flushed it. The time was near. The night before the shareholders' meeting, Kevin visited. He didn't bring flowers. He brought a document and a bottle of expensive red wine. He was dressed in a tailored suit I had bought him, his hair slicked back, his face glowing with triumph. "Jessica, long time no see," he said, swirling the wine in his glass, his eyes full of a victor's arrogance. "It seems Dr. Allen's treatment is working. You're much quieter." I sat on the bed, hugging my knees, and stared at him blankly. "Tomorrow is a big day," he continued, tossing the document onto the bed. "The annual shareholders meeting. I need you to read this statement and then sign this stock transfer agreement." I slowly picked up the papers. Every word on them represented the surrender of my family's legacy. "Sign it, and I'll send you to a nice clinic in Switzerland," Kevin said, taking a sip of wine, a cruel smile on his lips. "It's beautiful there. No one will know you. You can live out the rest of your life in peace." He leaned closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. "But if you don't sign, you might have an accident in this villa. A relapse of your depression, perhaps. A suicide." I flinched, my face a mask of terror. I'll sign," I stammered, tears rolling down my cheeks. "Just don't kill me. Kevin, I loved you. Why did it have to be this way?" It was the perfect question, the one that would make a vain man drop all his guards. Kevin burst out laughing, a loud, ugly sound that echoed in the room. "Jessica, are you still talking about love? Do you have any idea what these past 5 years have been like for me? Having to look at your condescending face every day, watching you buy me things like I'm some kind of charity case, putting up with those old fossils your dead father left behind. In your eyes, I was always just the son-in-law who married up, the pathetic gold digger, a trained dog." His expression turned venomous. "But I'm smarter than you. I'm more capable. Why should the you fortune go to a woman who has nothing but a lucky birth? I'll tell you the truth. From the day we got married, I was planning for this. I never loved you. I was disgusted by you. Every time we slept together, it felt like a chore. Only with Lily did I feel like a real man. That psychiatric evaluation, I paid $2 million for it. Locking you up in here, all part of the plan. I want you to watch as I turn your precious you corporation into my empire. I want you to have nothing, to be a dog begging me for scraps." His words, filled with 5 years of repressed insecurity and greed, were a torrent of poison. He thought my tears were from heartbreak, and they were, in a way, tears for my wasted youth, for my own blindness. But in the folds of my blanket, my hand was clutching a small device disguised as a brooch, delivered to me by the cleaning lady. A tiny red light was blinking, recording every word, every ugly sneer. "All right, stop crying and sign," Kevin said, releasing my chin and wiping his hand in disgust. Trembling, I took the pen and signed my name. The scratch of the nib on the paper sounded like a funeral dirge. "Good," Kevin said, satisfied. "Remember, at the meeting tomorrow, act like a real lunatic. Play your part, and don't try anything funny." He made a throat-slitting gesture, then walked out, triumphant. The moment the door closed, the fear and tears vanished from my face. I walked to the window and watched his car disappear into the night. "You're too arrogant, Kevin. You thought you had won, so you showed me the darkest corners of your soul. You have no idea. The hunter often dies from his own hubris." Tomorrow was Judgment Day. The annual shareholders meeting was the most important event of the year for the U Corporation. This year, it was held in the grand ballroom of a 5-star hotel. The place was packed not only with shareholders but also with dozens of journalists from major financial publications. Kevin, in his moment of glory, had even arranged for a live stream. He wanted the whole world to witness his coronation. I was escorted in by 2 large men, one on each arm. I was wearing a wrinkled hospital gown, another of Kevin's theatrical touches, with my hair disheveled and my eyes empty. The moment I entered, I was blinded by camera flashes. "My God, Miss Yu really is sick. Is endosfides. This is tragic. The rumors were true. Looks like the U Corporation is about to change hands for good." I kept my head down, letting them stare, as I was led to the main stage. Kevin sat in the center, beaming. His parents sat beside him, smug and victorious. "Ladies and gentlemen," Kevin tapped the microphone. The room fell silent. "Today is a solemn day. As you can see, my wife, Jessica Yu, due to her health, is no longer able to fulfill her duties as chairwoman. For the future of the company, Jessica has decided to entrust its leadership entirely to me." He turned to me, his eyes filled with warning, but his voice was gentle. "Jessica, dear, say a few words, and then we'll sign the papers." The microphone was pushed in front of me. I slowly lifted my head. The world seemed to stop. I looked at the sea of faces, indifferent, greedy, pitiful. I looked at the black lenses of the cameras. Under the table, Kevin's hand was gripping my wrist, his nails digging into my flesh. I began, my voice hoarse and trembling. Kevin's lips curled into a satisfied smile, waiting for the scripted lines. "I, Jessica Yu, as the chairwoman of the Yu Corporation, hereby announce." I took a deep breath. The fog in my eyes cleared, replaced by a gaze as sharp as a razor. My voice suddenly rose, clear and powerful, ringing through the ballroom. "The immediate termination of Kevin Cheng from all positions within this company, and I am calling the police right now." A dead silence fell over the room. Kevin's smile froze on his face. He stared at me in disbelief. "Jessica, you're having an episode. Security, doctors, get her out of here," he finally roared, scrambling to cover my mouth. But I shot to my feet, shoving him away. I pulled the brooch camera from my gown and held it high. "No need for doctors. Everyone, please look at the big screen." As I spoke, the massive LED screen behind the stage went black. A moment later, it flickered to life. The video and audio from the previous night blasted through the state-of-the-art sound system. "I never loved you. I was disgusted by you. That psychiatric evaluation, I paid $2 million for it. I want you to watch as I turn your precious Yu Corporation into my empire." It was Kevin in all his monstrous glory. The room erupted. Journalists swarmed the stage. The live stream chat exploded. Kevin's face was as white as a ghost. He pointed a trembling finger at the screen. "It's fake! It's all fake! This crazy woman fabricated it!" "Oh, we're not done," I said coldly. Mr. Peterson, who had been waiting in the crowd, strode onto the stage with a team. Behind him were not only public notaries but also officers from the white-collar crime division. "This is the complete evidence chain of Mr. Blow. Cheng's embezzlement, money laundering, and forgery of corporate seals," Peter announced, slapping a mountain of documents onto the table, including his offshore accounts and the $2 million bribe for his fraudulent psychiatric evaluation. "No. Impossible." Kevin collapsed into his chair, sweat pouring down his face. "Kevin Cheng, you are under arrest," the lead detective said, approaching with a pair of silver handcuffs. "I won't go. I'm the chairman. This company is mine." Kevin suddenly snapped. Like a cornered animal, he grabbed a heavy crystal ashtray from the table and hurled it at me. "Jessica, I'll kill you!" the crowd screamed, but I didn't even flinch. Mr. Johnson, who had been standing by, lunged forward, kicking Kevin to the ground and pinning his arms behind his back. "Let me go! I'm innocent! Dad! Mom! Save me!" Kevin shrieked, his face pressed against the floor. His parents, moments ago so smug, were now huddled under the table, too terrified to move. I walked over to Kevin and looked down at him. I felt no fear, no triumphant joy, only disgust. "Kevin," I said into the microphone, my voice calm and cold, "you wanted an empire. Fine, I'll send you to build one in prison." As the police dragged him away, he stared at me, his eyes burning with a hatred that was terrifying to behold. But he would never get the chance to hurt me again. The ballroom erupted in thunderous applause. The same board members who had been ready to condemn me were now on their feet, cheering. I stood in the spotlight, watching it all, feeling only a vast, profound calm. I had won. Kevin's downfall sent shockwaves through the city's business community. The police investigation uncovered a web of corruption. Dr. Allen was stripped of his medical license and arrested. The private hospital was shut down. Kevin's cronies at the company were purged, with the guilty ones handed over to the authorities. Even my in-laws were brought in for questioning for aiding and abetting. Though they avoided charges due to their age, their reputation was ruined. 3 months later, Kevin's trial began. He was gaunt and broken, his head shaved. Faced with the mountain of evidence, especially the video of his confession, his defense crumbled. The final verdict was 18 years in prison for multiple counts of embezzlement, fraud, and illegal confinement. By the time he gets out, he'll be a middle-aged man with nothing. That, I knew, was a punishment worse than death for him. Sarah, for her cooperation, received a 3-year sentence. She wept in court, looking at Mike with deep regret, but he never once looked back at her. Walking out of the courthouse, the sun was bright. Mike was waiting for me. He looked older. His shoulders slumped. "Jessica," he said, rubbing his hands nervously. "Thank you. If you hadn't spoken up for me." I had instructed Mr. Nind Peterson to argue that Mike was an unknowing victim in the money laundering scheme. In the end, his company only had to pay a fine. "It's in the past, Mike," I said. "Just live a good life now. Take care of Mom and Dad." "I will," he said, his eyes red. "We're moving out of the house this weekend. The court is auctioning it off." "There's no rush." I handed him a key. "The company bought the house at auction. You can all live there for now. They're old. They shouldn't be homeless. This wasn't saintly forgiveness. It was a calculated move. I didn't want anyone to ever say that Jessica Yu was so ruthless she even threw her elderly in-laws out on the street. Letting them live in that house, a constant reminder of their son's disgrace and my success, was a far more profound punishment. Mike stared at the key, then dropped to his knees. "Jessica, our family, we wronged you. I didn't help him up. It's over." Back at the office, the final purge was complete. The U Corporation was now truly mine. "You've changed, Jessica, Mr. Peterson said, watching me sign a document. "You're more like your father now." "Maybe," I said, looking out at the city. "In a world that eats you alive, you either grow fangs or you become the meal." Suddenly, I remembered something. "What happened to Lily, the model?" Peter hesitated. "She tried to flee the country with a significant amount of Kevin's money, but she was apprehended at the airport. Since the money was illicit gains, it was all confiscated. She's currently being held for conspiracy and money laundering." I smiled. The universe had a way of balancing its books. "Peter, one last thing. I wrote out a check. Please donate this to the city's mental health center. Set up a fund in my name to help women who are the real victims of emotional trauma and domestic abuse." He took the check, glanced at the amount, and nodded. A worthy cause. The wound that had once torn me apart had finally scarred over, becoming the strongest part of my armor. 6 months later, I was the keynote speaker at the city's largest business forum, honored as the Outstanding Female Entrepreneur of the Year. "Many people ask me," I said into the microphone, my voice steady, "as a woman, when faced with betrayal and despair, what do you rely on to fight back?" My answer is, you rely on yourself. Marriage is not a safe harbor. The only things that can give you absolute security in this world are the wisdom in your head, the power in your hands, the numbers in your bank account, and the courage to stare into the abyss without flinching. The applause was deafening. Later at the reception, I stood on the terrace, escaping the crowd. The night air was cool, the city lights a glittering tapestry. "Miss Yu? Hiding out here all alone?" I turned. It was Mr. Hayes, the CEO of a tech firm we were in partnership talks with. He was handsome, elegant, with an appreciative look in his eye. "The speech was brilliant," he said, keeping a respectful distance. "Rely on yourself. That line will stay with me. Just speaking from the heart," I replied. "I heard you have a passion for fine wine," he said, procuring 2 glasses from a passing waiter. "I was wondering if I might have the honor of inviting you to my vineyard this weekend to sample a new vintage." It was a clear invitation. The old me, scarred by love, would have politely declined. But now, I looked into his clear, honest eyes and smiled. I was no longer afraid to love, because I could now afford the risk. I had my fortune, my career, and an unbreakable spirit. A man was no longer a necessity, but a luxury, an enhancement. "I'd love that," I said, taking the glass and clinking it against his. The clear, ringing sound echoed in the night. I turned back to the sparkling city below. My life, the real one, was just beginning. In that moment, I took off a simple band I had been wearing on my ring finger to cover the faint indentation left by my wedding ring. The mark was gone now, the skin smooth. I slipped the ring into my pocket. "Don't dwell on the past,"